Hello, everyone. This is JJ from the Keyword Crypto podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Daniel Krawisz. Daniel is a computer scientist and a content creator who's been invested in Bitcoin since 2011. He's got some rather unique views, and whether or not you agree with his theories, we talked about some things that we think are just really important to understand. This was a really long conversation, so we've broken it into 2 one-hour episodes. If you like this show, please support us by checking out our website at www.keyword-crypto.com. That's keyword-crypto. This show, so far, is entirely funded by donations, so your help really keeps us alive. You can donate by using the method of your choice. All the info is listed in the description below. If you want to help but you can't do it with money, then please just share us with your friends and post on social media. Lastly, we have a Discord group for people who want to learn more or just ask dumb questions. Hit us up on Twitter at Keyword Crypto and we'll give you the info on that. And with that, please enjoy the show. That's my favorite part of the show right there. Every single time, it's my favorite part.
Hey everybody, it's Keyword Crypto. I'm Michael, that's JJ, and we got a special guest. JJ, you want to introduce him?
Today we have Daniel Krawisz. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you on the show. So let's see. I know you as a YouTuber, and you do a show called Bitcoin Stuff. What is your show about?
Well, when Bitcoin was taken over by the cult, I understood from having read Bakhtin that satire is the genre for a thought-controlled environment. And I also needed to get new contacts in Bitcoin because all of my friends were mind controlled. So I made a show that contains a demonstrated opportunity cost. And proof of work in Bitcoin is an application of demonstrated opportunity cost. And so I made a show. In Bitcoin, proof of work is a reason for other miners to watch the miner that produced the block more closely, and it's a better reason the more proof of work there is, because on average, the ability to hash is correlated with the ability to be sustainable. So if you see somebody with a lot of hash power, there's that means that there's probably a lot of economic activity behind the scenes, right? So my videos had demonstrated opportunity cost in the video, and that would be a signal that people would rationally want to look at, similar to hash power. I made the show in a way that it challenges intelligence. Mm-hmm. So people who are too low on the IQ scale will not be able to sit through the whole thing, and will not be able to understand what's going on in the show. And I was inspired by the book Don Quixote because that's a book about the power of imagination. So what I wanted to talk about on the show was what was missing from Bitcoin. So I wanted to present a vision of a successful Bitcoin rather than one where everybody has been mind controlled.
Okay, I feel like we could spend an entire episode just unpacking that
Yeah,
1 minute.
so here's the thing. So when I watch your show, I don't feel like I'm smart or I have a high IQ. I just feel like I'm hypnotized.
Well, yeah, no, I use hypnosis on the show. So, yes, many of my episodes contain hypnosis.
Right.
Yeah, so that has to do with the idea that Bitcoin is a shared consciousness. So, what I'm trying to do with that is cause all Bitcoiners to connect with the shared consciousness. So, that's what's happening. That's what's happening during the hypnotic message.
I mean, some of our listeners may have been hypnotized in that first minute where you were talking, actually, because they may not have understood what you were talking about, but it sounded very intelligent, and therefore they had to trust what you were saying.
I mean, well, that's a danger of having to listen to somebody who,
It's very smart.
well, and also somebody who talks too much. talks too much stuff that's potentially nonsense.
Can we go back to the Bitcoin cult? Because for anybody who's even kind of remotely into crypto, has been around for the last year, they're going to have the experience of Roger Ver calling Bitcoin Cash Bitcoin and calling Bitcoin Core. And so I just want to get the lines of delineation of when you say Bitcoin cult, which chain are you specifically referring to when you say that?
I'm talking about the BTC cult.
Okay.
So what happened is Blockstream is a company whose business model is based on being a parasite on Bitcoin. And instead of realizing that it is an inherently unsustainable company, people in BTC were indoctrinated to believe that the parasite was actually beneficial to Bitcoin.
In what sense? Can you clarify? In what sense? So what is Blockstream trying to convince them that they're offering, but is actually in your view doing harm? This is what I was getting kind of lost about.
Blockstream's business model is based on transaction fees that occur off chain.
Okay. So Bitcoin Lightning Lightning Network essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're acting like a bank and kind of hoping that everybody will use Lightning so they can just keep raking in the transaction fees.
I can see how that could be true.
I mean, because this was my complaint about Lightning Network since the beginning, is that it's essentially the opposite of what Bitcoin is. If the whole purpose is security and you're doing everything off chain, somebody has to eventually pay those fees anyway. And so that's what I don't understand about the whole idea of, if they're a bank and they're collecting fees, if it's going to eventually go on the chain, they're the ones who are going to be paying the fees. Are they just going to hope that the fees go down, or are they going to try to manipulate the system for a 2-month period and push through other transactions during that time?
Listen, I don't know enough about how the Lightning Network works to be able to say exactly what's going to happen. But ultimately, what Blockstream means is that they are going to they're attempting to give people an alternative to the Bitcoin blockchain. So any economic activity that would go through them is economic activity that has been siphoned off the blockchain. And that's what Bitcoin needs in order to be sustainable. And fundamental to the way that Bitcoin solves the Byzantine generals problem is proof of work. And the Byzantine generals problem in Bitcoin doesn't only refer to nodes.
And really fast, what's the Byzantine, just for our audience?
Oh, so the Byzantine generals problem, it means the nodes of a network starting from an undetermined initial condition all arrive at a permanent conclusion that is all agreed upon and all the same. And this is a problem in computer science because the network can always change more quickly than you can know everything about it. So I have a video called the Beaker, the Bunkin, the bunker. I don't remember the one about the faulty node, but watch that one, and I go through the proof on why there is no genuine solution to the Byzantine generals problem. So Bitcoin is a probabilistic solution to the Byzantine generals problem. The idea is that the Byzantium is being attacked, and there's a group of generals, and they all need to decide whether to attack or retreat at the same time. So if some of them attack and some of them retreat, that's no good. But if they all can do the same thing on the same day, then they're all good. Right. And the problem is adversarial communication, because Byzantium may try to intercept messages, and they might try to create fake messages. And of course, the generals might disagree on what the best strategy is. So they might have to argue for a while before they arrive at a conclusion. So what Bitcoin says is that the highest what it says is that we have a solution to the Byzantine generals problem that's probabilistic. So it becomes exponentially more difficult to replace the history that we have now, the blockchain,
right,
as you go deeper into it. So I should say technically, the Byzantine generals problem refers to a permanent solution, but that's actually impossible. And in Bitcoin, we have a solution that becomes so difficult to overturn so rapidly that it might as well be a permanent solution.
So then going back to the Blockstream problem.
Oh, okay. So let's go back to what the Byzantine generals mean in Bitcoin, because we could be thinking about the nodes of the network, but I think it makes more sense to think about the Byzantine generals as simply being the users of Bitcoin. So we're talking about a lot more people than just the ones, well, potentially anyway, than just the ones who are running nodes.
The miners.
Because lots more people are going to be making transactions with SPV than by running nodes. So think of all of the people in the world as being Byzantine generals, because they're all going to be users of Bitcoin eventually. And where was I going with this? Oh, and the only way they can see the way the kinds of of statements that become fixed. In other words, that they all agree upon have to do with where their money went. So when one of them spends and somebody else receives it, the fact that this transaction occurred eventually becomes agreed upon by the whole Bitcoin network. So those are the kinds of questions that we're talking about as far as what needs to be resolved in the Byzantine generals problem.
Okay.
And if the block size is small, then you can't fit everybody on the blockchain. So that's not going to work. And whatever the Lightning Network is, and I have not read the Lightning Network white paper, and some people were have made fun of me over that, but to me it was obvious enough that the Lightning Network was a scam that I didn't bother. I didn't think people would fall for it. But anyway, the Lightning Network is not based on proof of work, and proof of work is fundamental to Bitcoin's solution to the Byzantine generals problem. So Bitcoin with small blocks plus the Lightning Network is not an improvement upon Bitcoin with small blocks without the Lightning Network, because the Lightning Network is not a genuine solution to the Byzantine generals problem.
Well, it's interesting to hear you say that, because we kind of came to that conclusion just kind of following where the transaction fees were going to come from. So, yeah, go on.
So as more people become onboarded into BTC, they're all just going to keep bumping into each other. And no matter what stuff they build to enhance the Lightning Network, it's always going to be something that requires more tinkering forever just to get a few more people in, because it doesn't genuinely solve the Byzantine generals problem. So
I have a question. I have a question, but it's I don't know if we finished answering or talking about that. But if bigger blocks is a solution to that problem, why aren't we talking about that as the solution? Why are we talking about what is better use, what is better currency, what is better money? Because that seems to be the argument that is made for which Bitcoin to use. But if it's like if the solution is, oh, this actually solves the problem, this solves the Byzantine generals problem, why aren't we talking about that?
Well, it's because BTC is a scam. So what's really going on is that some people, and I don't know exactly who, but what I know is that BTC is being turned into an anonymizer. So in other words, the work that is being done to change BTC from the way Bitcoin was before SegWit is all about enabling transactions to go through with information being lost. And the Lightning Network is an example of that. But another thing that's going on is Schnorr signatures. So those allow a single signature, a single digital signature, to redeem several different outputs that are potentially belong to different people. So when the transaction appears in the blockchain, you don't know you don't know you don't necessarily know who's being mixed together by that kind of transaction. So,
And do you have a problem with that because of the white paper and the idea of everything is supposed to be counted and recorded so anybody can go back and look at it?
well, the problem, as I see it, is that without an anonymizer, it's stupid to steal bitcoins. But with an anonymizer, then it becomes a good idea to steal bitcoins. So that's a problem because it makes all the money less valuable.
And is BTC pushing Schnorr signatures? Is that what the cult is after right now?
I know they're working on that. I don't know exactly what's going on with it because I haven't been paying that much attention to them recently.
And you say that, I mean, BTC is a scam, but I don't know. That's not a criticism we hear very often. So,
to go back to your comment about it being a scam, stuff evolves.
Well, so here's the thing: if BTC is being turned into an anonymizer,
but is it?
Yes.
Well, that's what Lightning Network does, and that's what Schnorr does. So, those things anonymize transactions. So, yeah.
If it is without the full understanding of everybody who holds BTC, that means that the nature of BTC is changing without them being aware of the consequences. So if your coin is being turned into an anonymizer without your knowledge, then you're suddenly going from a coin that's stupid to steal to a coin that is a good idea to steal, or at least not as bad of an idea, because the records, because it's possible to not leave records that can later be checked against people's stories. You know what I mean?
Right, and that would show up as a fatal flaw later.
Yeah, well, that would be something that people wouldn't like if they were holding coins that were stupid to steal one day and a good idea to steal the next day. That would actually be that's quite a scam.
It seems like those two major things of anonymizing and Lightning Network essentially becoming a banker's tool because somebody has to act as the intermediary and take a cut of that, which is the exact thing that people don't like about banks, an intermediary taking a cut. It seems like everything is pushing Bitcoin, BTC, towards a NASDAQ, Wall Street, big bank coin for massive financial, massive wealth transfer, between one person and another, and not everyday use. And it seems like they're specifically picking that and Ripple and Litecoin and a couple other ones that seem to be pumping really hard right now, kind of for that reason, because none of these seem like day-to-day useful currencies. They all seem like things that really wealthy people would appreciate. Because if you're a billionaire and I'm a billionaire and I want to send you $100 million, BTC seems like a really great thing currently, because I can send it to you, and if we can make it anonymous, and then you and I can start acting as our own banks and start taking cuts of everybody who can't afford on chain transactions. Or
Okay, well, first of all, if you were a billionaire, you would not want a coin that had an anonymizer. You would only want to be a billionaire in a coin that's stupid to steal. And so you really don't want the anonymizer.
But if you're a billionaire, you do want the ability to steal other people's coins because most.
Oh, well, yes, right. If you want to be the thief, then yes, then you do want an anonymizer.
Which is pretty much what most big bankers are constantly trying to figure out ways how they can skim more and more money from the middle class.
I mean, I think that you should be more worried about much worse people than bankers. Not that I am a fan of bankers, but I think that behind the scenes, there is there's very serious crime being hidden.
Do you think Blockstream, this is their plan, or do they actually think they're creating a better Bitcoin?
Well, that's a good question, because I just don't know those people well enough to be able to answer that. But that is interesting. So what I kind of think is that Adam Back is like a useful idiot. So I think that he has been his ideology has been used to lure him into being a puppet, essentially.
I think this would be a really great opportunity for you to explain a little bit about your history. So that way people listening can get a better understanding of how you've come to these conclusions, because you seem like you've been it sounds from the way you're talking, you've been in this space for a long time and you've given this a lot of thought. And we've mentioned you have a YouTube channel, but we haven't really allowed you to dig into your past.
Okay, well, yeah. Well, so I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. And
an investor in Bitcoin, or a miner as well.
I have never done mining, unfortunately. But I first got interested in Bitcoin in 2011, and I first heard about it in 2009, but I didn't take it seriously.
Were you a computer scientist at that point?
No. No, I was working on my my physics degree. Later, I got a software engineering degree. I'm not aware of the full history, but at some point, some people started to implement an agenda to change Bitcoin into an anonymizer, which is what's going on now.
So hold on one second. Can I ask you, so you got into Bitcoin in 2011, and then you were just an investor for several years. You analyzed Bitcoin and you came up with your own kind of opinions, thoughts on how it works.
So I wrote a bunch of articles on a blog, and some friends of mine started a website called the Nakamoto Institute, and we archived Satoshi's Bitcoin Talk posts to make it easier for people to access. Well, we tried to get everything that we could from him, but starting around 2014, at least from my perspective, the BTC cult started to take over people's minds. And I think that's when Blockstream originally showed up, somewhere around then.
Mm-hmm.
And people started to believe seriously that
And for our listeners, what does Blockstream do?
they're a business, as they're a startup that's its business model is based on um, providing transactions for Bitcoin that it doesn't actually need.
What do they say they do?
Yeah, can you explain that? Because I don't understand that.
Well, it's just what we've been talking about earlier, right? How I said that they're a parasite that's on Bitcoin. That's their business model. People started to believe the idea that the block size needs to be kept small. As long as it's small, then there is some kind of need for an additional transaction service, which is what Blockstream is supposed to be providing.
So yeah, that makes sense. It would be in their interest to keep Bitcoin, a certain way that allows them to be profitable. Okay.
But people started to really believe this idea about small blocks, including friends of mine, Michael and Pierre. To me, small blocks are like the dumbest thing that I could imagine.
Really fast. Michael who and Pierre Rochard?
Michael Goldstein and Pierre Rochard.
Okay.
So I couldn't understand how people could seriously believe this. So I didn't take the idea of small blocks very seriously for a while because I thought it was so ridiculous that it couldn't possibly be a thing that would really happen.
Did you think that it was the purpose all along to increase the block size every couple of years and fork Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, I thought that eventually there wouldn't be a block size, and I didn't think that we needed one. But eventually I realized that my former friends in this organization, the Nakamoto Institute, didn't want to listen to anything I had to say, so I left.
When did you leave?
It's a good question.
Are they still publishing? Are they still finding stuff to publish on that website, or is that website done now?
I mean, I think they're still managing the website, but I don't know.
Their Twitter is still active, but the last time they posted was May 10th, it looks like. And then on April 14th, they just kind of retweeted that Pierre wrote a paper.
So I left around the time of the Bitcoin Cash split because they wouldn't let me publish my article about it.
They wouldn't let you. Okay, all right, that's a problem. That's very cultish.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would want them to not publish something if it wasn't any good. But yeah, I think that they only wanted to promote the small block agenda.
So you have mentioned on your YouTube channel several times that forks are actually good for investors because they give more power to the investors that hold both coins because they give access to both chains. So there's a lot more decision-making power in that.
Okay, well, no, let's talk about that because I have stated that in a way that is very misleading. So I should have said something quite different. But what was going on at the time that the Bitcoin Cash split happened was that the BTC, well, the small block group was trying to prevent any opportunity for the big blockers to do anything. So they were saying that if there was a split, that would destroy Bitcoin, and nobody would be able to understand what had happened, and that it's not allowed to go off and try big blocks. And what it is always better to be able to negotiate together to stay on one chain. So there should be one Bitcoin economy that is benefiting everybody in it. So not forking is better than forking. Mm-hmm. But in the case of BTC, what the small blockers wanted was something that would basically kill Bitcoin. So it was not. It was off the table.
Well, every time you increase the block size, you're going to have to fork because there are going to be some people who don't want to do that anyway, right? I mean,
well, but ultimately, it's really only people with hash power who have a say in the block size, and it's their job to figure out what is the optimal block size. And someone who doesn't want to increase it and who doesn't correctly determine what the real future of the network actually is will simply be rapidly left behind by the other miners and will mine a bunch of worthless blocks. So the miners all need to figure out what they're all thinking and what their capabilities are, because they have to design blocks that are big enough to maximize profit, but not too big that the rest of the network can't handle them too slowly.
Just to jump in, I jumped on Blockstream's website to just dig in a little bit, and I went on to their Liquid page, which is something that they've created, which is kind of like it seems like it's a lot like Lightning Network, and they explain what they do, their features, and then when it says, they have a whole section that says who benefits, traders and exchanges. That's who they list. Like, they're just very open about it. Like, so traders are going to benefit from this, and exchanges are going to benefit from this. And at no point do they say people who use Bitcoin, which that's kind of weird that you would be openly say that.
They want to keep pumping the price. Well, the basis for the BTC scam is to keep pumping the price so that the Bitcoin system can act like a good anonymizer, because there will be lots of traders to get mixed up in.
So at this point now, we've covered the last 10 years. We've gotten to this point.
Oh, wait, one more thing about forks, because I didn't know about the danger of secretly being turned into an anonymizer when I was making those videos, because it's not good for anybody if one of the coins they hold is being turned into an anonymizer without their knowledge. So that's something that can happen with forks that's very dangerous. So what was happening during the split was something where a split was inevitable, and it was certainly good for the investors that there was one chain out of two that could actually work. So the problem that I had was I just didn't know which side was really going to learn to be successful at first. because I could see that they were both making mistakes. So what they did on Bitcoin Cash was they added replay protection, which means that it effectively means that the big blockers have to start over because all of the history of transactions up to the point of the split they can no longer be built upon without everybody upgrading their software. And the Bitcoin Cash. So old transactions in Bitcoin Cash were the transaction format changed, so people couldn't use the old format anymore. So that was crazy, and both sides were acting nuts. So I took the position that that agnosticism is appropriate, or I tried to tell people that you shouldn't invest based on ideology. And I could see that people were doing that, especially in BTC.
I think in both, definitely. I think there was a lot of ego and personality, and that's what most people saw.
Yeah. And what concerned me was people who were being tricked into making investment decisions based on these ideologies. But really, if
you still hear it to this day, the argument, I don't mean to interrupt, but you still hear it to this day that the reason that this Bitcoin is better than this one is because it makes a better money. And I feel like we're not actually talking about the real problem. Am I wrong?
Yeah, well, it's about which one can grow sustainably and which one can attract in all economic activity.
On this show, we actually don't think Bitcoin makes very good money because it's something that increases in value because it's got a hard limit to it, or it does right now. There's no incentive to spend it, so it's not there's no economics behind it, really.
There are always differences in your time horizon. So there are always things that you need more now that are better than some kind of future benefit. So I would say that a fixed supply money encourages people to
save,
to be
right.
frugal. So it does not encourage them not to spend. It encourages them to be reasonable about what they consume,
which is the antithesis of a successful capitalist society.
Well, I don't think that that's true at all, because there's wealth is not based on. I mean, people's ability to consume and what is frugal for them is a function of the rest of the economy. So you could have a future economy where everyone has a lot of savings and they spend a tiny fraction of the money that they earn, but they also live in a futuristic utopia, and the amount that they're spending is enough to.
That's very different than the system that we have now, obviously. But I mean, the one that incentivizes spending. Anyway, my point is that the common argument is that one coin is better serves the world better as money, when it's actually, I don't know, I've already said it. I feel like that's an old. I mean, we already know that doesn't seem to be a good use for Bitcoin.
Okay, so Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash are acting crazy, and then comes along Craig Wright and says, "Hold my beer."
Right.
Bitcoin SV.
Well, we had the same problem in Bitcoin Cash as we had in BTC eventually, because we had a bunch of developers who who started acting like philosopher kings, and they thought they could say what the network was going to be, and they started creating propaganda to get everybody to go along with them. And they would try to say that Craig Wright didn't know what he was talking about. And then there was another split, and it was a similar scam to, or well, I don't know as much as what was going on in the BCH camp, but it was like a replay of the same problem, because suddenly everybody started acting like there were enemies everywhere, and like they wanted to beat off ideas that they didn't like, and so we had to have another split. So the BSV ticker symbol is simply the continuation of Bitcoin's history from the Genesis block, and it's the version that best preserves the original idea of Bitcoin and the way it was originally intended to work. And as time goes on, we're going to bring it closer to what the original form was intended to be. And BSV is the only coin that is not a socialist economy in the crypto space. And what capitalism enables is all creativity is synergistic. So anybody can make Bitcoin more valuable, and they can look for their own ideas on how to make Bitcoin more valuable. And they can look at how to connect their ideas to whatever is available around them. And if everybody does that, there's growth from every point in the BSV economy. So that's what's happening now.
Going back to Craig Wright, because he's an interesting character, do you think he is doing a great job of what he's doing right now? And do you actually believe that he is successfully hypnotizing people? I mean, is that what he's doing?
Well, I think that he is the most prominent person in BSV, but I think that there are many hypnotists in BSV who are.
Most people think it's hard to listen to him and not think he sounds like a fool. I think for most people, right? And maybe that's because people don't know what he's talking about, because he does seem to say things that really make no sense.
Yeah. So Craig has a way of, he has a way of communicating that's similar to what I do on my show, that deliberately rejects people who aren't thinking enough.
Why would you want to do that if you are just trying to? I don't necessarily understand. I understand the purpose of that, if you're trying to make a community that is very selective, but I don't understand the point of doing that to create a community that just grows.
The reason is that Bitcoin adoption proceeds in stages. So the highest IQ people get in first, and they create things that turn Bitcoin into something that can be understood by the next level of IQ. So right now, there's a huge crowd of people in crypto who are all deceived by crazy ideas, and we don't want any of those guys. So
what happens? What happens if those guys come along?
Well, they'll just be annoying. But if they figure out what's going on, then I welcome them in. It's simply a barrier of entry. It's an amount of thinking that you have to do to realize what's really happening. You have to have some idea, some ability to independently assess information in order to understand what's good about BSV. That's the idea of performing the intelligence test.
So if they understand what you're saying, then they pass your intelligence test?
Yeah. So the idea is to say something that sounds like nonsense below a certain IQ.
But the purpose of that is to attract the intelligent people to BSV because you don't want it to grow too quickly. You don't want a bunch of annoying people using it, is what you're saying.
Well, what's going to happen is, remember what I said about everybody's creativity being synergistic. So what we need to make Bitcoin valuable is...
That's your definition of capitalism, right?
No, that's just something that happens under capitalism.
Okay.
But what we need people who actually understand how to do that. So people who are genuinely independent minded and who want to come up with original ideas to make Bitcoin more valuable.
So do you think that people who are computer programmers, and most of them don't have a degree in economics or have studied monetary systems extensively, do you think those are the best people to create a currency for the masses?
No. No, and I think that the new money has already been created. So we don't need computer programmers to reimagine the Bitcoin protocol. All we really needed was programmers to make the software work better and become more optimized. But instead, in BTC and BCH, we had developers who started acting like philosopher kings, like from Plato.
Did you go on the record saying whether you believe Craig Wright is Satoshi or not?
And for the answer to that question, please tune in to the next episode coming out soon.